and he lost his stomach. And he said, "Ooh, Mommy, my penis got a little bit scared there." He loves her until and this one I just had to throw in. This is coming around, I think Jimmy even sent me this, when all the Charlie Sheen started. Around 3rd and 4th grade, you start to see some gender differences in humor. And this is actually a time when boys and girls tend to separate and identify with their same-sex groups. And from an evolutionary standpoint, they believe they need to do this to create the tension they need to actually see each other as sexual beings in adolescence. So you see a lot more grouping and self-identification. Remember the She-Man Women Haters Club from the Little Rascals? There's sort of that rejection of the opposite sex. And you see that boys tend to really like bodily function sort of humor. Anytime you just say the word poop, it's funny. Not so much so with little girls, but there are little girls that laugh at that. I remember my son, do we have any Cub Scouts in the room? Anybody? Nobody was a Cub Scout? Okay, great. Or, that's what I mean, when you were little. Do you remember the little saying you do, I promise, on my honor, I promise to do my duty to God and country. And I remember my son, as a Cub Scout, with his little uniform, trying to practice this, and every time he would get to, he'd be like, I promise to do my duty! And he would just he could never get by that part of the saying. It was just too funny. About referring to poop when you're promising your life to God. We also see gender differences, a lot more physical humor for boys, and there's a time period where actually girls' humor drops off in late elementary school, early middle school, but then it becomes much more focused on language, linguistic sort of twist. So let me show you just a little bit of this. How many of you remember the Three Stooges? Just do it, short clip from and most women know. And most girls don't like it. Why do you think boys do like it? If you think about evolutionarily, boys are preparing themselves to take risks with their bodies, and there's a lot more about testing the physical limits of your body. How much can you get away with before you actually hurt somebody? So a whole different mindset. Versus if you go on any playground in the United States, you will hear little girls doing patty cake, but if you listen to the words to some of their songs, does everyone remember Miss Lucy? You don't have to sing it with me if you know it. Ready? Miss Lucy had a steamboat, the steamboat had a bell. Miss Lucy went to heaven and the steamboat went to hello operator. Give me number 9. And if you disconnect me, I will chop off your behind the refrigerator. There was a piece of glass, Miss Lucy sat upon it, and it went right up her. Ask me no more questions, tell me no more lies. The boys are in the bathroom, they are pulling down their flies are in the meadow. Bees are in, and it goes on and on like this. So it's like I'm cursing, but I'm not. Okay, late middle school, appearance, acceptance. What else? How do I compare to my peers? And sexuality, right? We start to have lots more focus on sexuality. Image from a guy's dorm room. Women will have buttons like that to your dorms. That's hard to do. So now when you get any sort of nudity coupled with language, like what do you call a Rastafarian proctologist? A Pokemon. We've got lots of jokes about sexuality. Or this one that we love the double use of words. And it's adolescent. But fun. And all these things kind of prepare us for the abstract thoughts that we have as adults. And we have a much wider range, a repertoire of capacity for humor. Darwin words, most of you know what that is. I'll tell you a story. I was working in a local restaurant here in town, and we were having a problem with people breaking in and stealing money from the cash register. And at one point, someone broke in, was stealing cash, but actually paused to do a line of cocaine on the counter. Right as the police were arriving, they ran out the door, and the reason they caught them was because the guy was using his driver's license to cut up the cocaine and left it on the counter. So that's the Darwin Award. It's like, you deserve. Sarcasm. Anyone who's seen that shirt that says National Sarcasm Society, like, we need your membership. Droll humor is very similar to the British pea break that we just saw. Bathroom humor, we've just seen that. Dry humor is stuff like, have you heard the joke about the 3 holes in the ground? Well, well, well. That was my favorite joke in 6th grade. Non sequitur is different. It's a little bit of a nonsense joke, but it has the same syntax as regular jokes. So it's something like, how many pancakes does it take to fill up a log cabin? And the answer is ice cream because it has no bones. Obscenity. Parody is one of the ones you see often, especially on YouTube clips. And parody is basically satirical imitation of something. And the clip I'm going to show you, most of you are familiar with a woman who had 8 babies a year and a half, or maybe 2 years ago. And you know, of course, that stretches our sensibilities. Because, you know, for 30,000 generations of human history, one would have had 1 or 2 children, and now we have 8 children. So here is a parody of that issue. Let me take just a second to pull up.
The story of Nadia Suleiman, the mother of 8 simultaneous babies, becomes more layered every day. It's been reported that she's shopping a video of herself giving birth to the octuplets with an asking price of $1 million. Now, we did not purchase that video. We don't have $1 million, but we did manage to get a clip of it. And if you've never seen 8 babies born at once before, well, take a look.
You're doing great, Mr. Suleiman. Just breathe. Good, breathe. Now push. Push!
Okay, so the parody is, of course, in our culture, we think of birth as sacred, private, non-violent. But that one speaks for itself. With one-liners, such as things like, you know, that 75% of statistics are made up on the spot. Wordplay would be this picture. What do you think the name of this picture is? Moon River. practical jokes we did on my mom, who's sitting over here. About 15 years ago, when we first got computers and there were screensavers that you could program, brand new. We programmed in the office her screensaver to say, warning, warning, push any key and all files will be deleted. We just heard her in the other room go, ah! Slapstick is like the Three Stooges you just saw. Visual humor, I was familiar with clowns, and jokes, familiar with all money. So, is being humorous attractive? As a psychologist, as a researcher, and as someone who was formerly a single person for a long time, I was very interested in the idea of humor, because humor feels like something you should try to cultivate. And then I read some studies out of the 80s and 90s that said that humor is extremely attractive in men, but extremely unattractive in women. So why do you think those findings, or what are the theories about those findings? Do we have any thoughts about why? Yeah, I mean, there's this theory. One is that
because men are threatened by women for themselves.
Okay, and one of the theories is that humor is a sign of intelligence, and that if you're that funny that you can laugh at other things, that you could be laughing at them, which is not good. Throughout history, women's laughter is seen as a sign of sexual receptivity. But for a woman to make a joke is like a woman saying, I'm as equal to you and I'm like a man, because so much of humor, as we'll see in just a second, is about creating hierarchy. You can wound with humor, and you can puncture, and you can put in place, and so there's that hierarchy. There's also the theory that because it's a masculine feature, it would be something like, would you like your girlfriend or wife to make more money than you do? Or have bigger muscles than you? It's sort of like an extenuation of a characteristic that's considered masculine. And at first I thought, that's ridiculous. And then I started really thinking about the comedians. Like if you watch TV or the channel, I mean, most of those comedians are men. And if they're women, they usually start out with some deprecating, self-deprecating humor, usually about their weight. And I saw an interview with female comedians who said that they had never, in the years and years and years that they've been doing stand-up, been asked on a date after a show. Whereas men continually get flocked to as that being a really desirable trait. So in my experimental psych class, we decided to do an experiment and see whether this was still true. So this was about 3 years ago. And what we did was we set up kind of a Match.com type situation where we sent out profiles. So I'll tell you what they look like. So that would be one. There was a control group of 10 and an experimental group of 10. And what we did was we picked Caucasian women between the ages of 18 and 25. And we kept the beginning the same. I'm 5'3", a business major, and my friend described me as, instead of easy to be around, on the experimental group it might say humorous. So we tried to keep everything exactly the same, but have 3 in one group and 3 in the other use the word humorous to describe themselves, to see if there was a difference. And we ended up with 182 responses. And we did do, see, my math people are in the room. Look. It's a square. What we actually found out that when you compared the two lists, the controls and the experimentals, there was only one girl in which there was a significant difference in her level of attractiveness based on whether humor was added or not. And her rating actually went up. So we thought, maybe those studies aren't true anymore. But then we realized there were some real methodological issues with our study. So what would you imagine some of those to be? What's wrong with what we did? It's a small sample size. What else? We're assuming heterosexuality. We used all Caucasian women. We used one little age group, 18 to 25. And we were sending it out through Facebook. So our sample was tended to be friends of people in the class. So we were also thinking that it might be skewed by the actual face, because so much of our judgment about attractiveness is on the face. So we decided to go at this in another way. And what we did is we took 30 cards with qualities on the cards, and we gave the whole pile of cards to each person. We ended up having about 480 participants, and we asked them to rank this in order. So when you think right now about looking for a partner, what would be your number one most desirable trait in a potential partner? Money? Well, what else?
Intelligence.
Yeah. Sense of humor, thoughtfulness, attractiveness, honesty. We tried to think of as many traits as we could, and we also had 5 blank cards so you could write it in if we missed what was important to you. And our findings on that one were that for our female subjects, indeed, sense of humor ended up in the top 5 60% of the time. So it was our number 1 choice still. Faithfulness was number 2, affection and honesty number 3. But this is an interesting part. For our male subjects, honesty was number 1. You're 18 to 25-year-old men. That means they've been cheated on a lot. But sense of humor is number 2. So we're wondering, is it changing? Is there more acceptance of androgyny or different gender expectations? Could that be going into it or not? And I don't know. The last little part here is about the evolutionary considerations, how we do in-groups and out-groups, and how humor helps us do that. And we could examine this on many different levels: ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic class, levels of attractiveness. But for today, I'm limiting it to intelligence level. I think there's stuff on gender and also on nationality, these examples. So we love to delineate who is stupid and who is not stupid. So let me, this 911 call is titled, "Why It Is Important That You Marry a Good Speller."
911, what's your emergency? Yeah, my wife got attacked by a warthog real bad, and I need someone to come up with an ambulance and pick her up. Okay, sir, can you give me your address? Yeah, we're at 1825 Eucalyptus Drive. Okay, can you spell that for me, sir? I'm going to drag her on over to Oak Street. You can pick her up.
Series and all that, and he said, if your idea of loading a dishwasher is getting your wife drunk, you may be a redneck. If you have ever used a rag for a gas cap, you may be a redneck. Or my personal favorite, if you have ever climbed the ladder of a water tower with a can of spray paint to defend your sister's honor, you may be a redneck. But I had to throw in some more redneck stuff. This is a redneck measuring tape. Hands-free device. I don't know if you can see, he's got a wire with the actual phone taped to his ear. And he has a gun, a beer, and a cigarette. This is a redneck Palm Pilot. And this one, I don't know. It's hard to tell. A few about gender. Anytime you play with gender lines, people find it humorous. Because you think about gender as an organizing schema. If you are talking to someone and you don't know if they are male or female, it is very disconcerting for almost everybody. And you have to figure that out before you can even go on. You're looking, you're again, for 30,000 generations of human history, how did we pick our partners? Usually our families did for us, or we relied on our own instincts like smell, touch, sight, and we figured it out. Well now, as of yesterday, 1 in 5 couples that got married last year met online. Right? So we've had a big paradigm shift from having your family choose to now consumer shopping for a partner. So I want you to be really careful of personal ads. I have decoded some of them for you, so I'm going to put them up. Okay, so for women, if she says, I am adventurous, what does that really mean? A lot of people. Right? If she's athletic, she's probably flat-chested.
Yeah.
Contagious smile, takes a lot of pills. Emotionally secure means she's heavily medicated. Free spirit, she's a junkie. Friendship first means she's formally a very friendly person who's trying to change that behavior. Fun means really annoying. Outgoing is loud and obnoxious. Passionate is a sloppy drunk. Voluptuous, we all know what that means. And wants a soulmate means she will be your next stalker. But to be fair, for our men,
Not going online.
if he says he is a free spirit, ladies, that means he wants to sleep with your sister. If he says he is open-minded, that means he wants to sleep with your sister, but accepts the fact that she doesn't want to sleep with him. What does it mean when he says he's good-looking?
Egotistic.
Arrogant. This is the worst one of all. This means he is a pathological liar. Huggable means he's morbidly obese and has more body hair than a bear. Likes to cuddle means extremely needy, and you will be his emotional pack-mule. Thoughtful means he says please when he orders a beer. Out. And this is the best one, sporty. Means he will spend a lot of time on your couch watching ESPN, or lying on your couch groaning about his groin injury from taking rec softball way too seriously. There have been studies on attractiveness and menstrual cycle. Turns out that when a woman is ovulating, she prefers masculine faces that are symmetrical, rugged, have wide shoulders, and narrow hips. But closer to the beginning of her menstruation, she prefers men who are bound, gagged, and jousted. So I started in our nationality jokes about making fun of ourselves for our fatness. But I also have a couple in here, one from Iraq and also an Irish joke to share. So let me start with the Iraq clip.
Once a stronghold of forces loyal to captured dictator Saddam Hussein, the city of Tikrit, here in northern Iraq, is now firmly under the control of American forces. Or is it? These members of the Iraqi resistance movement, still loyal to Saddam Hussein, think otherwise.
The Americans tell lies. Each day our forces grow stronger. Each day we move closer to our goal of driving the infidel... What are they?
Oh, nothing. Carry on.
Driving the infidels from our motherland. We are not afraid to... Are there subtitles?
No.
What do I need subtitles for? Can't you understand what I'm saying? English at the bloody American University in Cairo.
Well, obviously I can understand what you're saying.
Oh, do you see how they condescend to us, these subtitles?
Maybe you see a teletext, you know, for the hearing impaired.
Teletext.
No, a lot of TVs come with teletext nowadays.
Wait, say something again.
My friend has an 80...
Hey, I'm coming up.
The situation remains as dangerous and volatile as ever here in northern Iran. While the rebuilding continues.
What? I can't understand you speaking.
Here it comes, Iraq.
So I also have an Irish joke for you. I think Jim sent me this one too. Sean Murphy comes just limping into the bar. He's got a huge gash across his nose, this big old bruise sticking out of his head, and his arm just seems to be almost hanging by a thread. And the bartender says, "Sean, what happened to you?" And he says, I got in a fight with Paddy O'Connell. And he says, "My God, laddie, what did he use on you? Couldn't he just had to have something in his hand?" And he says, "Aye, he did. A shovel he had. And he licked me good with it." And he says, "Well, didn't you defend yourself, lad? I mean, didn't you have something in your hand?" He says, "Aye, I did. Mrs. O'Connell's left breast. A thing of beauty it was, but of no use to me in the fight." And of course, when you look at what most concerns us, what have they hit there? They've hit violence, adultery, and alcohol abuse. All in one joke. And being Irish. So moving back to our landscape part. So what most concerned us in middle age? Loss of hair, a sense of humor, this one. There was a bunch of stuff going around the internet about middle age and women. It says she simply did not see herself as a complex carbohydrate. But anyway, this thing going around the internet, she said, "I'm asking myself now that I'm midlife the big questions like, how much healthy choice ice cream can I really eat before it is indeed a healthy choice?" She says, "I'm very concerned